Hey guys, welcome back to RIPP Superchargers and thanks for stopping by. If it's your first time here, you're probably looking for a little bit more power for your Jeep Gladiator or JL, and that's great because that's what RIPP does. RIPP Superchargers have been known for supercharging Jeeps since 2007. We're one of the first ones to supercharge a Jeep Pentastar, basically a Pentastar powered Wrangler, which is the JK, and now we're doing a great job with this new JL and JT, which is the Gladiator platform right here. Today's really exciting because it's the first time you're seeing this JT on the Dyno. This one here is a 2019 launch edition Rubicon with 410 gearing and all the bells and whistles that you would want. So if you have a JL or a Gladiator like this, you're probably really enjoying some of the modifications or the changes rather, than Jeep has made to the JK platform, right? So in this particular case on the Gladiator, they have a front half of a new JL and the back half of a Ram, and it can tow 7,000 to 7,650 pounds depending on which trim you have, and that's an awful lot of weight. Now, a common misconception is that the JK 3.6 liter, the Pentastar, is the same as this new gen Pentastar, and that's actually not the case. They've made quite some change to the transmission, this next generation 3.6. It remains 3.6 liter, however, they did quite a bit of engine changes that actually impact the way companies like ours that modify them apply their sciences to it. Okay, so one of the changes they made is they raised the compression, for example. They changed the intake manifold. They made a much larger intake manifold, which means you can shove more air in there. The throttle body is much larger, again, having to deal with volume. They put an EGR system in the vehicle. They removed the power steering, which is some load, and they put an electronic load. And the real star of the show really is the transmission, which is now an 8-speed ZF, which is fantastic. We have a lot of experience with the ZF in our SUV and in our car program, which both have a Pentastar and that transmission. So we were really, really happy to know that they were putting that 8-speed in there. Those are the really big changes. When we applied our superchargers to the vehicle, we immediately found some power, and I want to talk about power right now. A lot of clients often misinterpret what horsepower they're actually driving around. In this particular case, Jeep advertises 285 horsepower for this vehicle, and that is HP. The way the manufacturer advertises this horsepower is actually horsepower found at the crank or at the engine alone. And what that means is the engine's ability to put out horsepower is limited to just the engine, right? So that's before the drivetrain or the transmission or the tires or the air conditioning, basically everything that you need to build a car around. So what we found is in these vehicles, we're making about 220, 218, if we want to really get down to the semantics of it, but 220 wheel horsepower or real horsepower or brake horsepower. Either one of those, any one of those will work, but real world is what we advertise. So if you're driving around the JL on stock tires or on a little bit bigger tire, you're actually driving around 220 stock horsepower, and that's about an 18% drivetrain loss, and that's what we're using as a calculation, and that's how we find our calculation. Now, if you've watched any of our JL videos, you know that we've been making about 370 wheel horsepower, and that's some sizable and substantial gains that we're making there. So we would expect that the JT would make the same type of horsepower, and that's what we're here to do. If you'd like to see the kit, I can bring you over here real fast, and I can talk it over. That way maybe some of you who are seeing this for the first time can see what we're doing here. First thing that you'll notice that stands out is that air filter right there, and that's actually the inlet. The supercharger sits a lot lower down there, and the supercharger is belt driven right off the front of the engine, and it's nicely packaged in there. It almost looks OEM. The supercharger gulps down that air. The air filter is real high, so you never really have a problem with water. And then it pressurizes the air and it puts it through this front mount intercooler. This is right off our JK program, the RIPP XL, which is the biggest intercooler you can fit in any modern day Jeep. That cools the pressurized air down and sends it via another pipe right up here into the throttle body. There's a bypassing valve or a blowout valve up here as well. Then there's some components that go with it, like injectors and a map sensor, and those are all plug and play. Very simple to install, very minimalist by way of impact on the engine, and you don't really have to modify a lot of things, and we provide you everything. Well, all those things being said, I think we have this tied down on a dyno. Why don't we make some noise with it and then reconvene at the screen and talk about it, okay? 376.3 horsepower at the rear wheel, and a solid 320 pounds of torque, which is looking phenomenal and very, very clean. So that's pretty easy to live with, right? So let's talk about how you run these vehicles. Now that these vehicles can tow 7,000 to 7,600 pounds, we know and we have tested that when you have about 5,000 pounds behind this vehicle, it really starts to struggle a little bit keeping those highway speeds and with those grades, right? So when you have a RIPP supercharger, which is a centrifugal supercharger, and the 8-speed, when this vehicle will make some of these downshifts, it'll be very easy to live with. You'll have a light pressure, 1 or 2 pounds, 3 pounds pushing down on the engine, and then getting you over those hills without impacting the engine very, very hard, and more importantly, without any lag. Okay? When you're talking about being under the curve or over the curve in terms of power, or like you would be in a turbocharged scenario, right? You have to wait for some of that boost. And in this particular case, you wouldn't have to wait at all because the compressor is always there ready to deliver that 1100 CFM that's there for you to use. And when you're talking about positive displacement type superchargers, which will immediately pound the engine with boost, you have to negate a lot of that power by taking out timing and putting in a lot of fuel. Plus, those get very, very hot very, very fast. Often you'll find an immense amount of inefficiency in those compressors. And we know this because 8,000 kits later, we've spoken to nearly every type of consumer, guys who have tried different types of power adders and found that the RIPP supercharger combination comes together really well. In addition, because centrifugal superchargers are so efficient and so easy to spin, they're very efficient fuel-wise. So often our clients will find anywhere between 2 and 4 more miles per gallon in any scenario, even when you're towing. So that'll really help when you're making those long trips, right? And you're hauling, the family camper or a little utility trailer or a boat or your motorcycles. All that stuff will come into play. Naturally, we're here to answer questions, and we can't cover them all in one video, so we'd like for you to ask some questions in the comments. If you'd be so kind as maybe smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, and you can find us on basically every social media, www.ripmods.com, that's us with 2 Ps. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Instagram, and naturally we're here on YouTube. So thanks for stopping by, and we look forward to supplying you with some more boost.